Wall Street veteran Bernard Madoff has been arrested and charged with running a $50 billion Ponzi scheme.
Congress wants to know what caused the Enron meltdown.
Now, while the collective rage currently is focused on WorldCom,
Tyco CEO Dennis Kozlowski was convicted of looting hundreds of millions of dollars.
This is one of the biggest fraud cases ever.
Their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
Find out more on this week's episode of White Collars, Red Hands.
If you could commit a crime without being caught, would you do it? Would you go against the law, even though it was wrong, to prove yourself and to feel like you had beaten the system?
Yeah.
Back in the 1920s, Nathan Leopold and Richard Loeb aspired to do just that. The teenagers who were embarking on their 20s had a desire to commit a crime so perfect that they would never be caught. What happened? Did they succeed? Find out on the season finale of White Collars, Red Hands.
Did they succeed in not getting caught? Even though we're talking about it right now?
Yeah.
I don't know. Spoiler.
Spoiler.
Something they might get
caught. They got caught. Well, welcome to the season finale of White Collars, Red Hands.
Season 8, baby.
Yeah, fuck yeah. We're almost at 2 years of doing this.
I know. Do you ever, the first time that we sat down at the same microphone so long ago, I never thought that we'd still be here, honestly.
I'm glad we are.
I'm glad we are too. Well, it went on and and it just, it was a lot of fun. And
yeah, it kept happening. I think by the 10th episode, I was like, oh wow, we're like actually doing this.
Yeah.
Like we're for real doing it.
The end of the first season, when we recorded like 5 all at once, right? Like 5 back to back to back. And then, but since then it's been the weekly grind for a very long time, which reminds me to remind you that we will be having 2 weeks off.
Yes.
I am going back. I'm going back to school. I'm going to grad school.
Smart guy.
I'm getting a master's in biotechnology, or I'm going to attempt to get a master's in biotechnology. I guess I should phrase it.
He will.
Yeah. So it'll let me settle in. I go back next week, and we'll take 2 weeks off, and then we'll come back after that.
Which is good because the Post Malone concert is next week. So
couldn't miss that.
I can't.
Couldn't miss that.
I can't. Well, speaking of Post Malone, well, let's introduce ourselves. Actually, that's not even a segue. Tell the people who you are.
Hi, everybody. My name's Kashan,
and I'm Nina Kern. On this week's episode, I'm gonna warn you. I feel like we haven't had like a real tough one in a while. Or a real gruesome one in a while, or one that might make me cry in a while.
I'm about to say even last time's murder was the family, where it kind of wasn't like, it wasn't super. I feel bad saying this. It wasn't. Yeah, but it wasn't like super sad though.
Was that the Australian one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they might have all murdered him. They never.
No one knows.
Yeah, they never found out.
I do think it's Cassie.
Well, I still think it was all of them. But today, we know who did it.
We know who did it.
So, I mean, we there is a conclusion to this story.
There is, and it's this is a good one. I'm excited about this one. So, today we're talking about 2 people, actually. 2 people committed this crime, Nathan Leopold and Richard Loeb, whose nickname was Dickie, but I'm not going to call him that.
Ooh, Dickie Loeb. I love that. I'm calling him Dickie Loeb the whole time.
So gross. You can go ahead and call him that. I'm not calling him that.
Dickie Loeb, it sounds like a growth.
Yeah, it does sound like a growth. Yuck. Well, Leopold and Loeb were both born into very wealthy families. Nathan Leopold Jr. was born on November 19th, 2000. I'm sorry, not
2004. He's 18 right now.
Yeah, he's 18 as we speak. No, Nathan Leopold Jr. was born on November 19th, 1904 in Chicago, Illinois, which is where Kashan and I are based.
Yeah, close to home.
Yes. He was born to a wealthy German Jewish family. Leopold was said to be a prodigy, and rumor has it that he spoke his first words at 4 months old.
Which is
not
early?
Real.
Is that early?
Yeah, you don't talk until like you're a year old.
I'm never around kids. I don't know.
Yeah, no. Anything before a year is shocking. So I don't believe that. You can't even crawl at 4 months old.
Maybe he does that. And they're like, that's a word.
Yeah, and that might be it.
That's a word.
That might be it. Leopold was brilliant, though. He got his undergraduate degree at the University of Chicago, which is an extremely prestigious school. And before he was arrested, he was supposed to go to Harvard Law School.
Now, to be fair, though, back in this day, going to Harvard Law basically just meant you had the money to go to Harvard Law, and
correct.
They had the money, right?
Okay,
so.
Yeah, correct. But it was noted that he was very smart. And it was also said that throughout his life, he studied 15 languages and could speak 5 of them fluently. He was also a renowned ornithologist.
That was great.
An ornithologist, which is the study of birds.
Which you guys should know by now because of John DuPont, who was also an ornithologist, philatelist, philanthropist, and ornithologist.
Yeah. I forgot what it was.
Why are so many creepy rich murderers into birds?
Because birds are creepy.
I guess so.
I hate birds. And while he was in school, he actually was part of this group that discovered a new bird, was able to pin the bird down and be like, yes, this is a new bird species.
This guy sounds like a fucking rock star,
It was called the Kirtland's warbler.
So many friends.
And he also made observations about the brown-headed cowbird. Pretty cool.
I want to fall asleep.
I think it's weird. You know what? I hope I don't offend anybody, but like, if you know what bird it is by the tweet it makes, you need a new hobby.
Yeah, like you can have a hobby. I got weird hobbies as well, but that one's one that I'm like, have you ever met someone that did that and you were like, this is the coolest person I've ever met?
No.
No.
Well, you're weird.
They wear New Balances and like high white socks. They're not cool.
Well, Richard Loeb, Dickie Loeb, was born on June 11th, 1905 in Chicago, Illinois. This kind of freaked me out.
Dickie Loeb's a little younger, huh?
Yeah, he's a younger man. This is what creeped me out, though. Loeb is born the week after me, all right? Uh-huh. And my best friend is born on June 12th. It's just a couple dates that are a little too close for my liking.
There's only 365 days in a year, Nina. It's statistically very probable that things will at least be kind of close sometimes.
It's still weird to me.
All right.
You know I have a weird thing about dates.
Go read a horoscope. Yeah, I know. You go on so many of them, but they never work out.
Oh, fuck. All right. Well, his father was a successful lawyer and he was also the retired vice president of Sears, Roebuck and Company,
which was a big company in Chicago at the time. I don't know if you know this. They had a whole ass tower named after him. Obviously,
yes, they do. Yes, they do. Loeb was also extremely smart and like Leopold, just like Leopold, and he was actually able to skip a couple of grades while he was in school. He became University of Michigan's youngest graduate at the age of 17.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I forgot. He's the one that's like really smart.
No, he's like really smart. Loeb became a student at the University of Chicago Law School and was interested in graduate work in history.
At 17. He was in law school at 17.
Yeah, he was very smart. He was very smart.
Wasted his life, man.
It was said that Loeb was much more social than Leopold. I think the fact that he's not an ornithologist speaks for itself. Loeb loved to read detective novels, and he loved reading about crime. And fun fact, Obama's home is only 1 block from Loeb's home.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
You're really drawing a lot of comparisons today.
Just a fun fact I found. I didn't Google it. It was just a fun fact.
I mean, I'm sure it's true. They're both from Chicago. So.
Yeah, and well, we'll get to it, but they were both from Kenwood, which is right near Hyde Park, or it basically is Hyde Park, which is where Obama's house is.
Ah.
Yeah.
I don't know where any of these places are, and I live in Chicago.
So, although Leopold and Loeb grew up extremely close to each other, they didn't really interact a lot in childhood. They both lived in Kenwood, like I was saying, which is a neighborhood in Chicago that is on the south side near Hyde Park. The University of Chicago is located in Hyde Park. The neighborhood to this day is extremely beautiful. It's filled with mansions. They've kept them up really nice. It's a nice little spot to go walk around. You should go there.
Is that where Pritzker's house is, too?
Probably.
Okay.
I'm sure that's where it is. The houses there are fucking massive. It's insane. It's like insane to think that you're in the city and the house is that big.
Anyone who lives in one of those houses is gross.
Probably, yeah. They rekindled their friendship at the University of Chicago, and they shared a common interest: crime.
And another C word. We'll find that out later.
Oh.
Oh, I think it's the next line.
Okay. Also, it is also important to note that these two began a romantic relationship, and that Leopold was absolutely obsessed with Loeb.
See, there we go.
Yeah. What's the C word?
Think about it for half a
Canoodling?
second. What?
The only C word I can think of.
Your mind is constantly in the gutter, and for some
I was
reason
thinking-
right
all I
now it's
can
in a
think of
goddamn
is
washing
cunt.
machine. You're right. It's the opposite.
Cock.
You did it, man. You got there. I'm so proud of you.
I was like, what C word? It doesn't make any sense.
Bruh.
And that was pretty taboo back then to
To be fair, it was taboo for an extra 100 years.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
some would argue still to this day, especially in like states that rhyme with Schmalabama.
Yeah. You know, it's also, they were in a romantic relationship. They say that their relationship was extremely rocky. I mean, it's teenage love, so they tend to not be the healthiest relationships. And apparently Leopold had contemplated killing Loeb because of a confidentiality breach. I don't know exactly what that was. That was in an article I read, and I was like, what?
Like they signed an NDA, and he.
What I'm wondering is if he told him, like, don't tell anybody about my massive cat.
And then he's just going around like, oh my God.
And he was like, you wouldn't believe Leopold's massive cat.
He's just gossiping with the girls. He's like, oh my God, you would not believe.
Probably something like that. Their lawyer would later describe their relationship as weird and almost impossible.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Leopold was heavily inspired by German author Friedrich Nietzsche. He was very much inspired by Friedrich Nietzsche and this concept of the Superman, which was also called the
Ubermensch.
The Ubermensch. That's what I'm going to be for Halloween, the Ubermensch. In his writings, this Ubermensch Superman is an alleged intellectually superior person, and this superior intellect would allow them to rise above the laws and above the rules that, quote, bound the unimportant average populace.
And I don't even think this was like a big thing in Friedrich Nietzsche's writing. I think he just mentioned it like in like the beginning of a book or something that he wrote. And it was an idea, yeah, about a person, a like level of person that a theoretical level of person, honestly, that could do anything they wanted because in the grand scheme of things, it would always be for the better. So they kind of took that idea and really twisted it here because even in that they were like the Ubermensch could even like kill somebody because they know
Uber.
so much. They're basically too like nigh on omnipotent that they could like they know if they kill this person, they're doing it for the
Betterment.
better down the line or something. But
Interesting. Well, Leopold felt as though he and Loeb he's like, we are Ubermensch. I am the Ubermensch.
You're not, dude. You guys are fucking boring. One of you reads like comic books, basically.
One of you reads Nancy Drew, and then the other one looks at birds.
Like, you're not. I don't know how narcissistic do you have to be?
Well, I do think that part of this, though, is because of their wealth and because of their status at the time. Because in Chicago, so, I mean, I didn't really go too big of a deep dive into the history at this point, but the Chicago fire was really only about 50 years prior to this.
Yeah,
you know that the city is still reeling from that. And at this time, and even still today, Chicago was heavily populated with immigrants and heavily populated with poor people. And so he's from he's of high status, and so is Loeb. And I wonder that if he had been from like a middle class family or a poor family, if he would have grasped onto that idea as strongly as he did.
No, because he'd be too busy working in a factory at 3 to be able to be reading philosophy and going to law schools. Also, just by the way, one other note on the history or like the time right now is part of the reason I think that Leopold was so obsessed with crime to begin with, or Loeb. I'm going to mix them up constantly.
Oh, it's easy.
Loeb was so obsessed with crime at the time is because guess what was going on right now? the big crime spree in Chicago. This was Prohibition. This is the 1920s in Chicago, and Al Capone and gangs are running the city and basically like all major surrounding cities here in the Midwest.
Yeah.
So I think that had something to do,
and
it also has something to do with the investigation and things later. So
yes. But because of these works, they decided to become real life Ubermensch, Supermen, and rise above the law. And this is where they began their spree of crime.
Dun, dun, dun.
Now, in the beginning, their crimes were decently harmless. It was petty theft and vandalism. First, they broke into a fraternity house at the University of Michigan, where they stole penknives, a camera, and a typewriter. This typewriter will actually be used later in the episode. I will tell you later.
Also, just like, you stole it. Those things had to be heavy. Like,
oh my God, the fucking typewriter had to be 75 pounds.
You steal a typewriter out of there? Those things are solid, man.
Yeah, no, it wasn't easy. And obviously, like, there wasn't much risk because they're lugging a typewriter out of a fraternity house, getting into a car that sounds like the engine is being beat with a sledgehammer because it's 1924.
They gotta crank it up.
Like, no one's being sneaky here. But that crime was not enough for our pair of criminals, and then they started upping the ante. And they went from petty theft to then arson, but they started lighting shit on fire, but no one really cared. They were like, okay, this building burnt down.
They made a lot of things fireproof after the Great Chicago Fire, right?
Well, that's probably true, yeah.
So that no one cared anymore. They're like, we stopped making buildings out of wood, okay?
They were like, haha, joke's on you. The whole city's already been destroyed. We don't care. We could put the fire out before 2 days? Fuck you.
You can't burn down the second city, man.
No. Oh, man. This pissed the two off, and they decided to come up with the perfect crime. A crime so good that it would get the public's attention and solidify their self-perceived status as Supermen. Dun, dun, dun.
Spoiler, they don't do it. Because they're stupid.
So at this time, Leopold and Loeb are about 18 to 19 years old, and they decided that kidnapping and murdering a child would be their perfect crime.
This is when they're like, if you're planning the perfect crime, I don't think that ever includes. Yeah, it also
the perfect crime. I feel like stealing a bunch of money is the perfect.
Assassinating a dictator and no one ever knows. Like that's you're like such dicks to think you're so above everyone, and then when you're planning the perfect crime, you literally prey on like the most innocent and like person that's not like they're never gonna fight back. Right? You might as well kill an old lady. As your perfect crime.
Exactly. Yeah. I was actually thinking about this, and I do think if they would be alive today and be like 18 or 19 today, that they'd be like, I wouldn't say incels, but they'd definitely be weirdos on the dark web.
Yeah.
And that they would shoot up a school.
Oh.
Like, that's the vibe I was getting the entire time I was researching. I was like, you guys would have been school shooters.
Yeah.
If you would be alive today.
Yeah. They'd be a Discord mod for sure.
I don't know what that is.
It's another form of incel.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I don't have my encyclopedia of incels.
You gotta be on the internet more, man. I don't know.
What is it? Oh, Discord mod?
Yeah.
What's it mean?
They're just like these weird. There's like a running set of TikTok videos I watch where this guy pretends to be a TikTok or a Discord mod, and he wears like a Minecraft creeper T-shirt.
Oh yeah.
And he says things like "ooh woo, hello kitten," like stuff like that. Because they're like that kind of weird.
I don't want to know. No, that's all I need to know about that.
Discord is like an online messaging system where it's kind of like Skype but only for like volice. And you can like join rooms and stuff where you get updates and you can talk to people with like it's like Reddit.
It's like Clubhouse.
It's like Reddit, but you can talk.
Oh my God, that doesn't need to exist.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ. And all right, this is how fucking sick and disgusting this crime actually was. They planned out this murder. Like, they did try to make it the perfect crime. They fucking planned it out. It took them 7 months of planning. Everything from the abduction to body disposal.
Leopold's like, and I'm going to wear my finest New Balances for this.
He would wear brand new white New Balances. Absolutely would. In this plan, they also, so there's the kidnapping, the disposal, but they also had a series of complex ransom notes that they had typed up and also would call over the phone to give instructions to the victim's parents in order to get about like $10,000, which isn't even that much money. And you're already rich. So why do you fucking care?
Yeah, I think supposedly they did it because they wanted to dupe the person even more because in their plan, they had already planned to have murdered the kid before sending the ransom note. So like the fact that they get this, I literally think that they were so twisted that they got off on the idea that they would get the money and then the person still wouldn't get.
Right, they wouldn't get their kid back because their kid's already dead.
Which, by the way, kidnapping was the most committed crime at this point. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't.
Because bootleggers and things would constantly kidnap like rich people and ransom them.
Glad that was.
I listened to a podcast on Al Capone a while ago, and they talked about that like that was the hip crime, was going around and stealing people and getting money for them.
Let me just kidnap y'all, and I'll get $100,000.
Nah, she. Get in the back of my car, we're gonna mess with your family, and we're gonna get some money, and you're gonna fucking sit there, You want to play some old time poker or get some old timey syphilis, Man.
And then the typewriter comes back. They used the typewriter that they stole from the frat house to write the ransom note, which I'm sure emboldened them to a certain point. You know?
Yeah, I think like the whole thing they talk about is that Loeb had this obsession with crime.
Yeah, he loved it. It was like he was like the equivalent of a white girl now who only watches true crime, like that loves the murder shows. But more because he wanted to do it.
Yeah, it was like even worse than that. He's like a kleptomaniac, but there's probably a word for it though, where like all someone wants to do is like break the law. I literally think that he developed like an addiction where he had these uncontrollable impulses to just want to break the law in any way. And that's why it started out with petty theft and then arson. And then finally, like a serial killer, they escalated all the way up to murder.
I just feel like the incline of arson to murder is big. Like that's a big jump.
What would you put in between? What's the missing link there?
Assault and battery.
Yeah, but they're no offense, but they're pansies, man. Like
that's true.
They are not kids that would win in a fight.
That's true.
They're not rough and tumble guys.
Fair.
Honestly, that's why they had to choose a child, because they're not rough and tumble. They're not.
No, they're very small men.
Yeah, they're not winning.
They looked to be tall. Like Loeb looked to be pretty tall.
Yeah,
but very thin. Like they were tennis players.
Yeah.
They were tennis players. I was about to get to that, but they're tennis players, so they're not beating up anybody. So okay, I guess that's fair. Kill a kid is the next step.
So like that's all they could do. That was their next thing. That was how they could escalate, because they're not going to be able to physically impose themselves on anyone except for a child or an old lady. So
yeah. So they planned the kidnapping. They planned the murder. They planned the disposal. They plan the ransom note. So what are we going to do? What are we going to use to kill this kid? The murder weapon that they chose? A chisel. Like the things that they used to write in stone with. Fucked up.
Yeah, that's not... Like they purposely chose something that's like not a quick death, which is kind of shitty.
It's beyond shitty. Like you could have used a knife. A knife would have been quicker.
Yeah.
It would have been sharper.
And just as personal, too. So, like...
Fucked up. So this next part's kind of a lot. I actually feel okay right now. Earlier, I thought I might cry when I talk about it. But I feel okay right now. But if you are triggered by violence, if you have a problem with, like...
Don't listen to the episode on murders.
Well, yeah. If it's overly gruesome, anything... If you can't handle that, I would just fast forward a little bit. because it's pretty gross. So this is the most fucked up part of the whole episode, or the whole part of the plan, I would say, is that, you know, they researched who they were gonna kill. They watched and decided the kid that they were gonna pick. They planned that out too. They didn't just go, oh, okay, I'm gonna just kill this random kid.
Well, it wouldn't be the perfect crime unless
right.
Plus, if they're gonna ransom them, they have to ransom someone that
they know
they can
money.
Contact their parents.
Well, yeah, and that they know they have money.
And is rich.
Harvard School for Boys was in the Kenwood area, and that is actually where Leopold went to school himself, and that's where they were watching for a child and researching a child to pick. They chose a boy named Bobby Franks, who was 14 years old. He looked way younger than that. He was not a very big kid. He was also shaped strangely, but it's okay.
Wow. You're body shaming a murdered child. He was shaped weirdly.
He shaped like SpongeBob.
He looked like he was square.
The coat he was wearing in the picture I saw made him look very square.
He was a 1920s boy. He probably had rickets because he didn't drink milk.
Oh,
man,
no.
I don't know.
Poor Bobby Franks. He was the son of Jacob Franks, who was a wealthy watch manufacturer in Chicago. Bobby Franks was actually Loeb's second cousin who lived across the street from him. That's fucked up.
So they also picked someone that are like, I know this kid. Like he knew this kid. They were related. They like had spent not close.
They said they would play tennis together sometimes.
Yeah, like it's not close, but like they knew him, which is even more fucked up. You're killing someone you know. Also,
it's like me killing my cousin's kid.
Also, not the perfect crime, just by the way. Like this isn't, I wouldn't want anyone to commit the perfect crime, but if you're gonna kill someone and you want it to be the perfect crime and never get caught, you don't kill anyone you know. Ever. Because there's ties to you. Like you literally live across from the kid.
Yeah.
You idiot. They're dumb.
Yeah, they're dumb.
They're stupid. They have literally one of them is like the youngest graduate in University of Michigan's tenure, and he's an idiot. Rant over.
I mean, they are idiots. We're gonna get to it more later. On May 21st, 1924, Leopold rented a car under the name of Morton D. Ballard. Around 5 p.m., Bobby Franks was walking home from school, and they offered him a ride. He had just been at a baseball game, was getting out of the baseball game, walking home. They were like, hey, Bobby, get in the car. We'll drive you home. Bobby initially said no because he was only 2 blocks away from his home, which also doesn't make sense. Like, why are you kidnapping him that close to his home, you fucking idiots? Anyways, like if he had been like, no, I'm not getting in the car. And like, I know they didn't know about stranger danger back then, or I don't think they knew about stranger danger.
They're not strangers.
Well, that's the other thing too. They're not strangers. And so he trusts them. And so anyways, Loeb ends up persuading him to get into the car because he wanted to talk about a tennis racket. He was like, some tennis rackets usually, oh, come here. I want to talk to you about the tennis racket. And I know myself when I was researching this, Loeb and Leopold weren't that much older than him. Like I kept thinking they were older, but they were only 18 and 19 when this happened. Yeah. So it wasn't weird for him to be like, I mean, I know there's a lot of difference between a 14-year-old and an 18-year-old, but it's not like a 30-year-old wanting to talk to a 14-year-old about the tennis racket they're using. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's not out of the realm of reasons. It's not that weird. So, like I said before, the next course of events is pretty gruesome. There is some dispute about what actually happened next, but what is believed to have happened was that Bobby got into the car. We know that happened. Bobby got into the car. And then, he got into the car, and it was believed that Leopold was the one driving and that Loeb was in the back seat with the chisel.
I mean, that makes sense too, because Loeb is the one who really was always pressing the crime, right?
Yeah.
He was really into the crime, and Leopold was going along with a little bit because he had a strong infatuation for this guy.
Yeah, and I also think too, because I know that Leopold was also very he really went along with Nietzsche's idea of the Übermensch, and that was very appealing to him. And then I think that it was just the perfect storm, because Loeb was so obsessed with crime, and then Leopold thinks he's above everyone.
Well, I think a part of it is Leopold too thinks that maybe
if he goes along with it,
maybe Dickie Loeb is even like more about like because I think he really idolizes him because you know Loeb is like this outspoken, this like really kind of outspoken guy, and he can like talk to people, and he like, oh man, he's secretly like he's hanging out with me, you know, and we're like doing stuff like he's crushing hard basically, right? And I think part of him takes that Ubermensch and maybe doesn't super think of it himself, maybe not all the way, but probably does think about it
with Loeb
in regard to Loeb. Like he put him on a pedestal and will literally to the point of that, like, yeah, he knows everything.
Yeah. So when Bobby got into the car, it is said that Loeb struck him several times in the head with the chisel, then dragged him into the back seat, and then gagged him until he died. And then after that happened, they put Bobby's body on the floorboard out of sight and drove to the planned dump spot at Wolf Lake in Hammond, Indiana. And Hammond's only about an hour drive from Chicago.
So. Oh, man. I don't even think you put in one of the worst parts about this.
I didn't? What? Oh, no, I'm getting to that part.
Really?
Mm-hmm. The chemicals?
No. They stopped on the way.
Oh, no, I didn't. But then
they stopped on the way to dumping the body and got hot dogs and ice cream.
What the fuck?
Hot dogs and shakes. They ate afterwards, in between dumping the body. So, like, on the way to the dump spot, they stopped someplace. And they got hot dogs and ice cream floats. Like, ice cream sodas. Just to let you know who we dealing with here.
Yeah.
Psychopaths.
And so they go to Hammond after they eat their hot dogs. And once it got dark, they got rid of Bobby's clothes. They hid his body in a culvert, which is like, I don't know if I know what it is. It's like a tunnel kind of that channels water. That's the only way I can describe it. It's like a big pipe almost. So to ensure that no one would know who Bobby was, the pair of them poured hydrochloric acid on his face and genitals to conceal the fact, just so people wouldn't recognize him, but also to conceal the fact that Bobby was circumcised. I don't know if it was not popular at this time to be circumcised.
Only Jewish people were circumcised, basically.
Back then?
Yeah.
Oh, and they were Jewish. Okay.
So that's probably why.
I forgot about them being Jewish.
They didn't want it. But I still feel like anytime, I think detectives at this point, I mean, they didn't have a lot of tools at their disposal.
No.
Right? But I don't think one of the tools they were using is looking at the dick and balls and being like, huh.
Well, that looks like, hey, that looks like Bobby Franks.
They're like, oh my God, you're right. Call up Jacob Franks right now.
Call up Jacob Franks
right now. Like, they're not doing that.
When Leopold and Loeb got back to Chicago, it was already known that Bobby was missing.
What?
Yeah.
Bobby's missing?
Yeah. Leopold called Bobby's mother and told her that he was a man named George Johnson.
Terrible fake name.
I know, so stupid. George Johnson, are you kidding me? And he told her that Bobby had been kidnapped and that instructions for delivering the ransom would follow. All right. So Leopold and Loeb then mailed the ransom note, burned their blood-stained clothes, and then cleaned up the blood from the rental car. And then once they finished, it was said that they spent the rest of the evening playing cards.
Classic.
So not only were you going out to dinner before you dumped the body, honestly, you should have been too tired to play cards after all that.
Playing some gin rummy after that.
And so this is what the ransom note said. Dear sir, proceed immediately to the back platform of the train. Watch the east side of the track. Have your package ready. Look for the first large red brick factory settled. It was all in capitals. Situated immediately adjoining the tracks to the east. On top of this factory is a large black water tower with the word champion written on it. Wait until you've completely passed the south end of the factory. Count to 5 rapidly and then throw the package as far east as you can. Remember that this is your only chance to recover your son. Yours truly, George Johnson.
I got some notes. One, too long. All right. Get to the point. Cut that down. Draw me a diagram if it's going to be that long.
Well, okay? I was going to say, my kid would be dead. I'm horrible with directions.
You're
Like, my kid's fucked.
It's just like you pulling out the map quest. Like, oh shit, what street are we on?
Are you kidding me?
What train is this?
Throw it as far east as you can. Are you kidding me?
Did you bring your compass? I didn't. I don't.
The compass wouldn't even help me.
You're just like, oh.
Because as soon as you turn, it turns.
Is east?
Because at one moment, I've got my compass like this and it's going north. And then as soon as I turn, I'm still going north.
Yeah, that's kind of what a compass does, bro.
Fuck that. I don't know where I'm going. I need left and right. Up and down. Never a Girl Scout. What are your other... So it's too long.
Oh, honestly, that's the main note. Also, I don't know if you talk about this later, about the ransom note and how it actually helped find them and who it was.
Yeah, because of the typewriter?
Part of the typewriter, and partly because... So, ransom notes at this time, like if you got one, right? Do you think it would read... like a fucking Princeton acceptance letter?
No.
They were like way too snotty with, dear sir, like they were way too snotty. Ransom notes would have constant misspellings. They were written by criminals who were not smart. So that's part of the reason they thought.
They didn't know their east and west.
That's part of the reason they thought they were like, this isn't just a regular criminal. This is someone who is educated, who knows this person. And that's part of the, like, that's how they got, part of the reason they got caught.
Yeah.
So that's note number 2. That's all the notes I have.
So Bobby's family received the ransom note the following morning, and Leopold called a second time and dictated the first set of instructions. He told his dad to get into a yellow cab at 3 p.m., which did not end up happening because one thing that happened was before the cab thing, they were supposed to go to a certain address and someone forgot where the address was. But then the taxi was supposed to be there at 3. But before that happened, before he could get into the taxi to do this, the police called because they had found Bobby's body. So the whole plan was foiled.
Yeah, they stuck him like when they put him in the culvert.
It was 24 hours.
And they literally, the reason is because when they stuck him in the culvert, he was like hanging out. Like his
they didn't like put him in there.
Like his feet were hanging out, and like they were just like, no one's ever, like, you don't think anyone's gonna notice a little boy's feet sticking out of a pipe? Like, it's gonna happen.
Idiots. So when they had found out that the body had been found, Leopold and Loeb destroyed the typewriter and burned the blanket that they had wrapped Bobby's body in, which I'm like, why didn't you burn that with your clothes, you idiots? Anyways, after that, they continued their lives as usual, like they had done before. The Chicago police launched what was called an intensive investigation, and rewards were offered for any information that people had. Leopold and Loeb kind of went about the situation very differently, but with what we know about them, that's not surprising. Loeb was very quiet about the whole thing. He didn't because obviously this is big news. This is a big thing that's going on. Everybody's talking about it.
They actually publicized it even more because at this time, the politicians and the lawmen of Chicago were under a lot of scrutiny about how they haven't been able to keep gangs in control.
Yeah.
So when something like this happened, they would blow it up in the media to get the heat off of how they were doing such a bad job at catching Al Capone and his cronies and all these other people. So that someone else they would focus on something else, and that they would look like a hero in the end if they finally caught these people.
Right. And so since this was such big news, everybody's talking about it. Loeb was very quiet about it. He didn't engage in conversation about it. He just kept his head down, went about his business, which with what we know with him, that's not super shocking. Leopold, however, would talk to anyone who would listen about the situation, including police and reporters, on what his theories were about what might have happened. Which, I mean, if he's not into it as Loeb, it's kind of like feeling guilty.
Yeah.
You know? He was even quoted saying, "If I were to murder anybody, it would be just such a cocky little son of a bitch as Bobby Franks."
You fucking idiot.
Also, Bobby's 14. They're all little cocky sons of bitches.
Yeah, I'm about to say, what? He's so rude to a dead child, publicly. No, what the fuck, man? This would be like if Casey Anthony was like, "Yeah, my daughter sucked." Like, what you can't.
I fucking hate toddlers. And if I were to kill a toddler, it would have been mine.
It would have been that stupid little bitch. You're like, that's not. What are you doing?
Right.
That's a bad thing to say. Normally, even if you didn't kill them, you'd still be kind of a dick.
Right. Now the police. So this was a dumb bitch move. So the police were investigating by where the body was found, and the police found a pair of glasses by Bobby's body. The glasses had an unusual hinge, purchased by only 3 customers in Chicago, and one of those customers was Leopold.
They made a whole show of it when they came to his house too. They were like, he lied at first and was like, "Oh no, I have them. They're here." And then he made this whole big show about he looked through his whole fucking mansion. He's like, "I swear I have them." And they were like, "Okay, show them to us and then we'll leave." And then it just kept going until finally he was like, "I guess I lost."
Yeah, and then when he was questioned about it, he also said that they fell out of his pocket while he was on a birdwatching trip the previous weekend.
It was at that beach where they dumped him.
Yeah.
So that's why. So they were there. So I guess it kind of made sense. He was like, "Oh, I was there."
Yeah.
And then I dropped him.
Like, how do you just not know your glasses are missing?
Well, I guess he noticed that they were gone when they dumped the body, and they just like half-assed looked for him. And then when they couldn't find him because it was dark, they were just like, "Meh, probably lost him somewhere else." Dumbass.
Jesus. Well, Leopold and Loeb were summoned for questioning on May 29th, which was only 8 days after the murder happened. They told police that on the night of the murder that they had picked up 2 women in Chicago and dropped them off near a golf course without learning their last names, which actually they were in Lincoln Park, which was interesting.
No, you didn't. You guys are fucking nerds, dude.
Yeah,
what are you talking about? You're not cruising for chicks, man.
No. This story was immediately debunked when Leopold's chauffeur told police that he was repairing Leopold's car that night while they had claimed to have been using it. And then the chauffeur's wife also confirmed the story was true because she was like, yeah, the car was in the garage.
And Leopold's family sent that chauffeur. So the chauffeur told Leopold's family, like, there's no way he could have been doing it. I was repairing his car. So after they had made this lie and the chauffeur had told that to Leopold's family, the family was like, "You got to get down to the police station and tell them that immediately. This is going to break the case. Like, they're going to let him go once you get down there." And it did the opposite effect because of how they had just lied. So he went down there. He's like, "I'll do something that will clear their name." And he's like, "I was working on their car the whole time." And they were like, "Oh, really?" You don't say.
Huh. Interesting. They destroyed the destroyed typewriter that they did the ransom note with. They ended up finding it in Jackson Park Lagoon on June 7th. Lagoon in June. Like, for planning a murder for so long, you really did a shitty job of it. And I was telling Kashan earlier, I'm like, this is the 1920s. They didn't even have technology. So the fact that they figured out who murdered this kid in a week shows how fucking bad of a job you did murdering this kid.
It is by far the worst perfect crime I think I've ever heard of.
It's opposite day. Loeb was the first to confess, saying that Leopold had planned everything and that Leopold was the one who killed Bobby in the back seat of the car while Loeb drove. Leopold's confession came quickly after, but he insisted that he was the driver and that Loeb was the one who murdered Bobby.
Oh, shit. I think someone's lying.
One of you is a liar. Their confessions were announced by the state's attorney on May 31st. Leopold revealed later that he tried to convince Loeb into admitting to killing Bobby, saying, "Momsy feels less terrible than she might, thinking that you did it." That's his mom, Momsy.
No, I'm not gonna do that.
He's like, my mom's real pissed, but she'll be like not as pissed if you say you killed him.
Okay, see, what I'm hearing is that sounds like a you problem.
Problem?
So yeah. No.
Most people who have studied this do believe that Loeb was the one who killed Bobby, and honestly, I do too.
It makes sense.
It makes more sense. There is other evidence that suggests otherwise. There was an eyewitness who states that he saw Loeb driving and that Leopold was in the back seat just minutes before the kidnapping. But honestly, these dudes kind of looked alike.
And witness testimony is the least reliable source of information, actually.
Yeah. So, I mean, they look like, I wouldn't be shocked if they didn't see that correctly or think of it in a different way and, whatever. But both Leopold and Loeb did admit that they were driven by Superman delusions. And that is why they committed this crime.
Yeah. That's why you planned all of it so rigorously, is because you were in the throes of madness.
Yeah, the whole thing doesn't make sense. When they were like explaining this, they were like, well, we had to do this, but like we weren't looking forward to the killing.
You're gross, messed up people who wanted to kill somebody and decided on a child because you thought it was the easiest, and decided on a child that you were related to because you thought it was the easiest.
Yeah. Leopold said that he was interested in learning what it would feel like to be a murderer. And he said he was disappointed when he found out that he felt the same as ever.
Great.
Fuck that guy.
Great. Asshole.
The trial of Leopold and Loeb was labeled the crime of the century. But to be fair, they were the third case to be called that in the 1900s, so I don't know how legit the title actually.
And we're 20 years in, dude.
Yeah. So, the crime of the century. It's the crime of the century. This is the crime of the century.
Also, if you thought sensationalized news trials were just for now.
No, they were always.
With like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, all the O.J. Simpson trial, all of these things. Nah, they've been around since mass media and trials were a thing.
Yeah, no. Loeb's family hired Clarence Darrow to lead the defense team, and Leopold notes that his first impression of Darrow was one of horror because his hair was crazy and his clothes were super wrinkled. But in his book, Leopold says that if he was asked to name two men who came closest to preaching the pure essence of love, he would say that it was Jesus and Clarence Darrow. Had a high opinion of him. But just like Jesus, we'll find out that Darrow did save him. Darrow is hailed to this day as one of the best defense lawyers that this country has ever seen. And he was actually also the lawyer in the Scopes monkey trial, which is very interesting. Allegedly, Darrow was paid $1 million for his services in 1920s money, like $1 million at that time. But he was actually paid $70,000, but that is equivalent to $1 million in today's money.
I'd take $70K right now.
Hell yeah. Absolutely. Darrow took the case because he strongly opposed capital punishment, and he would actually pick cases where he felt like his clients were going to get the death penalty in order to save them from the death penalty because he was so opposed to it.
Yeah, he took and he would also take on impossible cases, like cases that everyone would be like, you're destined to lose. And he's like, well, yeah, but
I'm going to do it.
I'm trying to save these people.
Yeah. It was assumed that Leopold and Loeb were going to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. However, Darrow knew that the jury would probably still find the men guilty and that they would end up with the death penalty. And so obviously Leopold and Loeb went through a lot of interviewing and a lot of testing to prove that they weren't completely of sound mind. And even Sigmund Freud was asked to come evaluate them for their what was going on mentally, but he couldn't come because he was sick. But they did not plead not guilty. Darrow elected to enter the plea of guilty, hoping that the judge would give life sentences. And they actually didn't even have a jury for this.
Well, if you don't have a trial, then you don't have a jury.
Yeah, because he pled guilty, so there was no jury.
Yeah, there's no trial. You just enter a guilty plea.
There's no trial. Sorry. You know what I mean. Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, a case like this is going to cause a huge uproar, and hundreds of people would flock to the courthouse every single day. And it's not shocking. This was a really violent, gruesome crime. And so many people wanted Leopold and Loeb to be hung.
It's just the other thing is, though, too, is that there's so many other violent and gross crimes happening right now. But this was once again another way for them to sweep that under the rug with sensationalizing
and it's a child,
this trial.
So it just seems so much.
I mean, it is worse.
And
but Yeah.
And it kind of is like they were in a safe neighborhood. They were in a good neighborhood. This is a
you killed it. Not only did you kill a child, but in the 1920s, you killed a rich white child.
Yeah.
Which now people are going to care about more because of racism.
Yeah, but it was
And
more racist to that.
and everything.
Or, well, I guess I shouldn't say that. But it was a big deal. It was a big deal. And it was like, oh my God, this could happen to one of us too. So people really were impassioned by it. The trial ran for 32 days and had over 100 witnesses. The defense presented extensive psychiatric testimony, including childhood neglect due to absentee parenting and sexual abuse by a governess, which I don't doubt that those things happened. However, does not mean that you can premeditate a murder.
Yeah.
Yeah. One witness testified that Leopold and Loeb's dysfunctional endocrine glands were which are glands that produce hormones.
Endocrine.
I don't know what they are. Whatever. They produce hormones, and they said that they were fucked up, and that's why they committed the crime. I don't believe it.
Yeah, no, that's pseudoscience. It's not true.
No. Darrow also claimed that the two never would have committed the crime if they had been on their own, but because they were together, it caused the perfect storm.
That might be true.
I do agree with that to a point. I think Loeb might have done it at some point.
Yeah, because at
some point.
With his fixation on crime, he's obviously going to escalate at some point.
I don't think Leopold would have.
No, he would just keep looking at fucking birds, that nerd.
Yeah, he would have just become intolerable. More intolerable than he probably was. But I do think that maybe Loeb would have one day committed a murder. At the end of the hearing, throughout the whole course of this, Darrow ended up giving a 12-hour-long masterful plea, which is said to be the finest speech in his career.
12 hours?
Yeah, it totaled 12 hours. He didn't do it straight, but it totaled 12 hours.
Okay.
I read a lot of it until I couldn't anymore.
So, like, 3 pages?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah. In this speech, he makes arguments about the justice system, the death penalty, how we glorify murder in some cases and not others, which he had a point there. Because he was like, you're crying for them to be hung and for their death, but yet you were singing the praises of everyone who killed people in World War I. Yeah. And I was like, you've got a point.
Yeah. And
however.
And also, he did equate the death penalty with murder.
And
it is state-sponsored murder. We are still killing somebody.
Yeah. And he also noted that Leopold and Loeb could not be blamed for what they had done when they were just implementing Nietzsche's, what do I want to call it? Like ideals. They were being taught these ideals and they were just implementing the ideals that they had been taught. So can you really blame them? I say yes.
So they were saying they were indoctrinated?
Yes.
I don't know about that.
I don't know about that either, but it was a point.
A lot of people read Nietzsche and don't commit murder.
Well, I agree with you, but it's a point he made.
Yeah.
The speech was successful. And on September 10th, 1924, so this is literally almost 98 years to the day, the judge sentenced Leopold and Loeb to life imprisonment for murder and an additional 99 years for kidnapping.
Just tack that 99 on there at the end. Life
he's
plus,
probably trying to.
Life plus 99.
Yeah, they're just trying to. It's like with Bernie Madoff. They're trying to prove a point.
Isn't life like an actual number, though? Like it's like 50 years or something?
I'm not sure.
I feel like that's true, but I don't know for sure.
That probably is. Yeah. Leopold and Loeb went to Joliet Prison, which isn't super far from Chicago. They were intentionally kept apart, but they still managed to maintain their friendship. And you know what they say? Friends who slay together, stay together.
Dumb, for one. But for two, how can they still be friends after they literally both flipped on each other?
I know, it's weird. It's weird.
They're like, that guy murdered him.
Yeah,
and then the other one's like, that guy murdered him.
They have a weird relationship.
It's like, he murdered him. But if you still want to fuck,
yeah, I'll lie about it, but I'll still fuck you.
That's fine.
I don't know. I've fucked a lot of people that lied to me.
Not good with dates.
In 1931, Leopold ended up being transferred to Stateville Penitentiary. I hate that word.
Penitentiary.
I hate that word. It's so hard to say, which is still in Illinois and it's near Chicago. Loeb actually also ended up being transferred there sometime later. And while they were there, they really worked the system. And then it was weird. They let them be together. They let them work together. Like, not be together, but like they let them like be around each other and stuff.
Yeah.
And they were model prisoners. They started a school in the prison. And while they were there, they added a high school and a junior college curriculum. They probably were really bored. They were very smart. So they were probably trying to find stuff to do.
I mean, yeah.
But
if you're going to spend life in prison, you got to find something, right?
Right. Something to do. But things were not all hunky-dory in prison. And on January 28th, 1936, Loeb was attacked by another inmate. James Day took a straight razor to Loeb, and he suffered over 50 wounds on his arms and hands, and then his throat was slashed from behind. So there's a lot of he said surrounding this. Loeb he was propositioning Day for sex, and Day says that Loeb assaulted him and that he was defending himself, but due to the homophobia of the times, they ruled that Day was protecting himself and that he wasn't, that this was a murder out of self-defense.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of even up to relatively recently, and probably still now to a little bit, the police have always had like an gay mentality to stuff. They were like, ew, gay stuff. That's why Jeffrey Dahmer literally got caught. Like, one of the guys that he drilled a hole into his head and fucked up got caught running out of his house and was like, this guy's gonna kill me. And the police caught him, and Jeffrey Dahmer's like, oh, that's just my boyfriend. Yep. And the police were like, ew, gay stuff. And they gave him back to him.
Yep, that happened.
So this is the same thing. They're just like, ew, gay stuff. We don't want to deal with it.
Yeah. And especially in stuff with prisons like this, a lot of shit will happen in prison that just, and unfortunately flies. And
yeah.
When you killed a child, when you do shit to kids, they really...
Yeah.
They'll fuck you up in jail. So.
I mean, yeah, there were also probably quite a few people under the opinion that, he finally just got what he deserved, because so many people were probably for their death in the first place.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I don't think that anyone even questioned this. I think it was like don't do that again day. And then that was it. The Chicago Daily News reported about the story and said that Richard Loeb, despite his erudition, today ended his sentence with a proposition.
You gotta be fucking kidding me.
No.
They wrote that joke into this?
So bad.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they wrote that into that. It's so bad.
It's kind of funny.
It's fucking hilarious, but it's bad.
If we're being honest, it's kind of funny, but goddamn, man.
Jesus Christ. And after Loeb died, Leopold continued working in the prison. He reorganized the prison library. He continued revamping the school system, continued teaching, and did volunteer work in the hospital. And in 1944, Leopold actually volunteered for the penitentiaries. Penitentiary. I hate that word. Just say jail. Jesus Christ. Their malaria study, and was inoculated with malaria to undergo experimental treatments.
I don't think that worked out. We did not solve a way to fix malaria for a while.
I do think that this is inhumane treatment of prisoners, but
yeah, are you kidding me?
We can get into that another time.
Are you kidding me?
Oh no, I'm not kidding you. I think it's fucked up.
No, I'm saying obviously.
It's just like testing on animals.
But worse.
Yeah. He noted that he did all this good work to help compensate for his crime, and in my opinion, you really can't make up for what you did. Leopold published an autobiography in 1958 called Life Plus 99 Years.
Oh my God.
Many accused him of writing the book to regain favor with the public.
I'm about to say, how self-indulgent.
Oh, I mean, he is a very self-indulgent individual. In March of 1958, Nathan Leopold was paroled. The Brethren Service Commission, which is the Church of the Brethren affiliated program, that's some sort of Christianity. They let him work as a medical technician in a hospital in Puerto Rico. So he was able to go down there and be paroled. There was also a movie based on Leopold's story that was being made, and he tried to block production on the basis of defamation of character. I'm not saying anything right.
You adding an R in there? Deformation?
Is it defamation?
It's defamation, yeah.
You know what? I always get defamation and defecation confused, and they're two very different things.
Yes.
They're two very different things.
They both could include shitting on someone, though.
Well, that is what this is. He said it was a defamation of character, and it's like, bud, you defamed yourself. Like, whatever.
Yeah, they're probably not saying it's not true, to be honest.
Oh, I accidentally skipped this. But he also tried to set up a charity after he got out where the funds of his book would go to troubled teens. But the state of Illinois was like, no, you will not be doing that. So he he moved to San Juan, Puerto Rico. He got married. He married a woman, despite saying in an interview that he was still in love with Loeb in 1960.
Let it go.
Dude, he's dead. He was trying to fuck someone else other than you.
Yeah, let it go, bro. You simp.
Yeah, he's a simp. He earned a master's degree at the University of Puerto Rico and taught classes there. He also did research on leprosy, which I thought was interesting because I thought we got rid of that. But
no.
We still have it?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we got rid of it.
No.
Oh, all right. Great. Another thing to be afraid of. And then on August 29th, 1971, Nathan Leopold died of a diabetes-related heart attack at the age of 66.
Should have skipped those ice cream sodas.
He should have. And fun fact, after he died, his corneas were removed, and then they donated them.
Oh, I remember that. So someone got
his eyeballs.
Someone got his
Two
eyes.
people got his eyes.
Leopold's eyes.
Yeah. Wouldn't that, could you imagine your donor being a murderer? It's kind of fucked up.
I don't care, man.
I can see through the eyes of a murderer.
If I can see, I don't care whose eyes they came from.
All right, I guess.
Honestly, I'm like, give me Hitler's eyes.
Wow.
I don't care.
Okay,
because I'd rather see.
Well, the story of Leopold and Loeb has inspired media in many different ways, resulting in books, TV shows, and movies. I think it's bullshit that he got paroled.
I mean, yeah. Like, he killed a kid. So I'm okay not giving them the death penalty, but I don't know if I'm okay letting them out early.
I'm not okay with letting them out. I'm fine with them not having the death penalty. I'm not okay with them getting out.
Yeah.
But the perfect crime ended up becoming the perfect disaster.
It's never the perfect crime. They fucked it up within 24 hours, man.
Less than 24 hours. They're fucking it up while they were doing it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Leopold and Loeb's obsession with becoming criminals ultimately destroyed them. Their story is well known and remembered almost 100 years later. However, the legacy they leave behind is one of shame, not of power. Thank you for joining us this season. We can't wait to have you back for season 9.
Season 9, baby.
Season 9.
That means we've done now at this point like 87 episodes. Mm-hmm. I think it's around there. 86, 87 episodes.
Yeah, because this season ended up being 11 instead of 10.
And we've had other two-parters and we've definitely added sometimes where we've had like 11 or 12 episodes in previous seasons. So,
thanks so much, you guys. Thanks for the support. Thanks for listening. If you want to continue supporting us in free ways, following us on social media is a huge help. We're on Facebook.com/WhiteCollarsRedHands. We're on Twitter at WhiteCollarsPod. We are on Instagram at WhiteCollars_RedHands. We are on TikTok at WhiteCollarsRedHands. If you have a suggestion for an episode, we are going to be brainstorming for next season. So if you have a story that you really want us to listen to, please send it or not listen to cover. Please send it our way. You can do that by DMing us on our social medias or by emailing us at Facebook. Don't email us on Facebook. You email us at whitecollarsredhands@gmail.com.
Can you believe that Nina has spoken for 87 of these episodes and still can't do it?
Yep, I can.
Penitentiary.
It's hard. That's a hard word. You should have seen me misspell it.
You wrote this outline. That's the funniest thing to me. You wrote the outline. You put so many words in here.
There were a lot of words today. I was like, there were a lot of words today that I was like, I don't know how to say it. I know what they mean. I just don't know how to say it.
In fact, you said Superman like 17 times instead of just figuring out how to say Ubermensch.
True. I know how to say it. I just don't like saying it. Anyways.
Okay.
On One free way to support us, you could buy our merch. You can go to our website, www.whitecollarsredhands.com. Click the little merch tab. It'll take you over to TeePublic. You can buy anything and everything. And then another great way that you can support us is by word of mouth. Tell your friends about us. Even today, I had a friend who had an Instagram story and she was like, send me your recs for podcasts because I'm getting bored during my workouts. I sent her my own podcast. I have no shame. You can send her my podcast too.
You're just sending this woman like 1,000 links to our podcast.
No, I just sent her the link to the Spotify. And she can pick whatever episode she wants.
Yeah, there's 87 of them.
87 of them. And I think that's it.
Oh, review.
Oh, yeah, you can review us too. We love 5-star reviews, but an honest review is good as well. Please don't say you don't like our commentary. If you don't like our commentary, just don't fucking listen to us.
We got another glorious 1-star review recently.
I don't know what you people want. A podcast is to listen to people talk. If you just want to read the story, then you can read it yourself.
Yeah, you can do the hours of research we do to put this together. That's fine. You can do that.
Yeah, I worked on this a long time today.
But if you click on the podcast, be prepared because it's hosted by us and we will be ourselves.
I want to talk. I love to talk.
Nina does love to talk.
I have diarrhea of the mouth. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. We will see you next season for another season of White Collars, Red Hands.